Thank you very much, Marty. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and we are in interesting times. At the outset, I need to do something I don't normally do, and that is say that the views that I express today are mine and mine alone. These are some issues that we are not completely together on, even within my own organization. Let me give you a little background, though. Even before the economy has crashed, manufacturers have been losing sales and cutting jobs. Over the last couple of years, hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs have been lost due to very significant worldwide competition. And on top of that, we got artificially high energy prices coming out of what we call the flawed organized markets, the restructured markets that have taken place. We thought that real competition would bring innovation as well as a price discipline, and we haven't gotten that. What we did get, though, was simply new and much more expensive forms of electricity delivery. There's little real interaction between suppliers and demanders. It's an impossibility to get real, reasonable long-term contracts. And we have a new form of regulation even out there. And I'm not going to go into the details. That's not the real reason for being there. This is just a little bit of a background. We now have, though, a new administration. And the new administration is talking about a variety of things. And in my 10 minutes that Marty asked me to do, I want to just touch base very briefly on these. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, demand response, smart grid, and climate change. Some of these things have already been touched on by other speakers. So I want to emphasize these, that all I'll do is touch on them from a large customer standpoint. As far as renewable energy goes, wind primarily, but it's also solar, tidal, geothermal, biomass, new hydro. There's a whole variety of different kinds of renewable energies. They offer tremendous opportunities, as we all know, and it seems to me that the states are recognizing this and trying to work real hard on setting standards that outdo the other states. Competition between states on who can be the one that push renewable further. Renewables, though, have characteristics that are significantly different than more traditional generation, and that's something that I think we need to keep in mind. For example, a North American Electric Reliability Corporation study that's coming out very soon emphasizes that wind is variable, it's uncertain, and it's often located in remote regions. And these things can have very significant impacts on their cost and on their operability as they actually come in. So our bottom line is that renewables bring very, very significant benefits. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and they ought to be promoted, but they also bring substantial costs. Energy efficiency has been discussed at great lengths. Even the speakers this morning talk about it. We are, as Marty said, we are advocates of cost-effective energy efficiency. I argue that my companies, the large industrials that compete in worldwide competition, must be advocates of energy efficiency just to stay competitive. However, energy efficiency has its side also. It may not reduce peak loads, so we may end up having both generation to be able to meet the needs on peak as well as the energy efficiency cost to implement what comes out to be off-peak. Utility-administered energy efficiency programs involve a tremendous amount of overhead, and we have to look at that. In essence, what they do is they take $1 from a customer, they run it into the utility takes 25 or 30% of it as overhead and then spends the rest back to try to stimulate. We think at least that there's better ways of doing that. There are many implementation issues, such as free riders, people that would have done the energy efficiency anyway, but they take the subsidy that comes from the utility and that sort of thing. There's also decoupling. If anybody has any questions on decoupling, it's one of my favorite issues. But what it does is it guarantees the utility that's implementing the energy efficiency their revenues or their profits. And, of course, there's all kinds of problems. If you have a big recession and the utility loses sales, it could be that the decoupling says that they're decoupled from a recession rather than decoupled from energy efficiency. The bottom line is very simple. Energy efficiency is a terrific resource, but it may end up costing consumers far more than we think. Demand response is another issue. Very, very important. My members, large industrials, have participated in demand response for years and years and years through primarily interruptible contracts, things along that line. It's a real resource. FERC is now saying it's more than 5% of the supplies out there right now. And that representative said that demand response and energy efficiency could cut projected peak growth by half between now and 2030. That's tremendous if it would happen. However, to get the demand response, we have to have significant capital expenditures. We don't have to have a smart grid, but we have to have a lot of components of a smart grid to get it. We have to have tremendous amounts of measurement and verification to make sure that what we're getting is actually what we think we're going to get. And ideally, peak load pricing for all customers, and I'll touch on that in just a few minutes, but I find at least that most customers that I talk to, when I'm out walking around my neighborhood and I'm talking to my neighbors, They don't want peak load pricing. What they want are bills levelized over the year, which is exactly the opposite kind of motivation that you get. I think we're going to walk into a buzzsaw if we start forcing peak load pricing on customers that don't want it. So the bottom line again is demand response is a tremendous resource, but it will come at a price, and it might be a significant price. The smart grid. I think my bottom line is customers don't believe in it yet. They haven't been sold that it's there. It could do a lot for the electric industry. I hear all sorts of things. It'll bring world peace almost. You know, I don't think there's an accepted definition of what it is, and I'm concerned that we're going to have a new Blu-ray versus HD DVD fight all over again. We just had a fight in Congress over whether it should be internet-based or whether it should be radio-based, that kind of thing. We know it will be expensive. Trillions of dollars will be spent on this. And will it really bring the claimed benefits, or will it bring the benefits that customers really want? Or will it just bring benefits that customers don't really want? The bottom line, again, is that a smart or a smarter grid may bring great benefits, but they will come at a cost. And if not done with customer support, it could end up backfiring. And then the big one of all is climate change. It appears that we're going to have a cap-and-trade program fairly soon. I doubt it'll be this year, but fairly soon still. We don't have any position on that. I have members with stationary sources, with mobile sources. I have members with generation, without generation. But the one thing that brings us together is that if we are going to have climate change, we want it to be efficient. We do know that the costs of greenhouse controls are going to be very, very substantial. McKinsey, though, is often mentioned as a study. They came out and said that we could have 70% reduction with no lifestyle changes and only a 1% reduction in GDP. However, to get what McKinsey, I urge you to go look at that study very carefully. We need 42 million hybrid vehicles by 2030. That's 40% of all sales. We need to avoid deforestation of 170 million hectares, and we need to plant another 330 million hectares of new forests. That's twice the size of Venezuela or something along that line. And most of those opportunities are in developing countries which aren't really ready to move into this. California may give us some indications where California is ahead of us in many different ways. I'm not sure that that's good, but I think it's a statement of fact. I point out that the Wall Street Journal says that 1.5 million Californians are out of work. They have the fourth highest foreclosure rate. They've lost more businesses than any state in recent years. They have a $42 billion deficit. None of that caused by their climate change yet they're going to layer on top of that, I think it's $23 billion worth of climate change cost. And they say that that's going to end up benefiting the economy of California. Time will tell whether that's the case or not. I'll wrap up my brief introduction by saying basic manufacturing in the United States already is in terrible condition, and yet there's a great momentum to implement several new and very substantial initiatives. Most certainly these initiatives have the potential to create new jobs, clean jobs, green jobs, whatever they want to be called. However, I urge us all as we go into this to keep our eyes wide open. Will they be done right? Will they actually bring about a net benefit for the economy? I know what it's going to do to basic manufacturing. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to your questions.